FBI allegedly deleting Jeffrey Epstein records.
Now, you're not going to see this headline in the United States.
No, I had to go to Pakistan to get that headline.
Wow.
I had to find it in a Pakistani newspaper.
You already know what it is. It's your boy Laid Back with another reaction, another review, another episode. Hey, TikTok, you up to bat. Wow. It's your boy Laid Back. Welcome back to my channel. Hey, two things we got to do. You got to hit that subscribe button. I'm drinking this water. You already know what it is, man. You are the prize in 2025. You are the prize in 2025. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you hit the notification bell. Stay up to date with all the videos. Look, make sure you hit the like button, man. We back with another compilation. Hey, I've been gone for a while. You know what I'm saying? I was on vacation. I rarely take vacations. It was needed. But we back, and you know, we talking about a whole bunch of files that's being released, from Epstein to John F. Kennedy to RFK. Hey, it's crazy out there. You know what I'm saying? Martin Luther King. It's a lot of stuff going on right now, and it's not looking too good for certain people. That's all I'm gonna say. Certain entities, certain people. But if you make it to the end of this one, you a real one for real. I also got a TikTok playlist you can go through, binge watch if you into this type of conspiracy stuff. But this is gonna be an eye opener, and it's gonna, yeah. But you make it to the end of this one, you a real one for real. Let's go ahead and get into it. Fire Squad, what's popping? Let's get it.
So we were looking today to find out more about why the government's been so suspiciously protective of Jeffrey Epstein. This afternoon, a bunch of conservative influencers left a meeting at the White House with binders that said the Epstein files, phase one. Once the binders were opened, people were able to see flight records and Epstein's Rolodex and a list of masseuses. The masseuses' names were blacked out, and the information from the flight logs wasn't new. Neither was the Rolodex. When we began to feel duped, Pam Bondi released a letter that says, basically, I was duped too. In the letter addressed to FBI Director Kash Patel, Bondi basically says, I asked you for the full and complete files related to Jeffrey Epstein. I received 200 pages of documents. I asked if these were all the documents, and the FBI said yes. Late yesterday, I learned from a source at the FBI field office in New York was in possession of thousands of pages of documents related to the investigation and the indictment of Epstein. Despite my repeated requests, the FBI never disclosed the evidence of these files. Bondi's demanding by 8 a.m. tomorrow morning that the FBI deliver everything to her office, including all records, audio, video recordings, all materials related to Epstein. And she ensures DOJ will disclose everything. And she's directing Patel to begin an immediate investigation into why the FBI isn't following orders. So who's in charge at the New York FBI field office? Who's withholding Epstein docs from the Attorney General? James Dennehy is running the show there. There he is. This is the guy who emailed his whole staff to dig in after Trump took office. And don't forget that James Comey's daughter is an assistant U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York. She worked on the Epstein and Maxwell cases. She's kind of knee-deep in this.
Make sure you do your own research.
Jeffrey Epstein files, we're told, are to be imminently unleashed. And already we saw the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, say that the scale of what happened is far worse than anyone realized. Well over 200, maybe 250 victims. And that we're going to get information either later today or tomorrow from these files. What can you tell me about that?
I believe it will be today. I was just with, I saw Pam and Kash in the White House just before coming on your show. And I can tell you that I haven't been privy to it yet, but I know it is coming out. They will be taking portions of it. We have to be patient. And I said this last night at a dinner with some media. And I said, I think America needs to remember one thing. We are going to be promises made, promises kept. But when you're dealing with victims, and by the way, this is a perfect example of a case that was vetted, that went through trial, that had testimony, and was prosecuted the right way. And I don't preemptively attack. That's just not the way I operate. But in this case, in Epstein's case, it is incredibly disturbing. We have flight logs, we have information, names that will come out.
Is it going to be shocking?
Is it?
I don't see how it's not shocking that there were so many individuals that were hidden and kept secret and not been held accountable. Let's talk about the reverse. I believe in accountability. So you have to now go through your process. Now, I won't say they're guilty until they go through their time in court. But again, now it's time for accountability. We have seen for so many years, Pierce, in this country, many investigations, subpoenas, testimonies in Congress, et cetera, et cetera. But there's a general frustration with accountability. We take it halfway, we don't take it home. And I really believe that now.
Whoa. That was a bar. She said we take it halfway, we don't take it home. Ooh. Accountability seems to leave us at times.
Cash and Pam, there will be accountability.
And we know that only one person so far has actually gone to prison over that whole scandal. It was Ghislaine Maxwell, the former lover of Jeffrey Epstein. No man so far has actually been put in prison as a result of what happened. Do you think by releasing information from these files, we are likely to see criminal actions being taken?
Absolutely.
Really?
I think it would be negligent for us not to. You have to hold individuals who are indeed accountable. We have to have them tried, in my opinion. And I do believe in that. You know, nobody should be just dismissed. You have to have your time in court and your case will be heard. But to hide lists, to protect political friends, all of that, we don't have time for that.
Who is she? I like her. We ain't got time for that. I like her. They need to keep her on the show, whoever she is.
So I was on Piers Morgan a couple of days ago with a panel, and we were all talking about there was an ex-CIA agent, some guy that, you know, just like hated the way the whole investigation was on JFK, and then there was me. So I told Piers, and I'll swear by this, I've heard this my whole life. I remember I was 12 years old when he died. Right. I was sitting out in my patio, my father and mother there. My mother was upset, and my father said, I'll never forget, what are you mad about that rat for? He should have died a long time ago. My father made a comment like that, right? Like he was mad that my mother got upset. That's the first thing that put in my head. When I got into the life, I talked to my father afterwards. He said, you know what happened there. I said, this bum, the whole family should die. He talked to me like that. He was really upset. He was hated. Hated. So I have spoken to all the people in the know at that time that were there, and they 1,000% told me it was a mob hit. Now, let me be clear on this. I believe the CIA, the government was involved in it also. Obviously, they had to be. I don't believe that we planned that hit. I don't think we hired Oswald and planned the hit. I think what happened, for whatever reason, and I have no idea why, the government wanted to eliminate, a faction of the government wanted to eliminate CANT.
FBI allegedly deleting Jeffrey Epstein records.
Now, you're not going to see this headline in the United States.
No, I had to go to Pakistan to get that headline. I had to find it in a Pakistani newspaper. FBI allegedly deleting Jeffrey Epstein records. I'm not going to show it because of the time. It's a clip from the Benny Johnson show, and he did an interview with the whistleblower. But I am going to put up on screen the X post by Michael Schellenberger. He said, FBI whistleblower confirmed to me that a source inside FBI said FBI employees were destroying evidence on servers, and that he informed Kash Patel.
And in the Benny Johnson clip that we can't get to today, he specifically pointed out the Epstein files. So it wasn't just a general deletion of files, but specifically related to the Epstein
Gee, could it
case.
be related to Israel?
Is this stuff shocking that they did that?
Together with the help of the White House, our intelligence allies, the Department of Defense, the Department of Justice, we will be conducting investigations into the following: the assassinations of JFK, RFK, and Dr. Martin Luther King, unidentified aerial phenomena, also known as UAPs, unidentified submerged objects, also known as USOs, the Epstein client list, the origins of COVID-19, and the 9/11 files.
Whoa, they going through all this? Bruh.
I mean, that list, wow, that is unbelievable. I was blown away that we got the JFK records, not only the JFK records, but we had also RFK Jr. assassination and Martin Luther King assassination. All of those records are held secret. And we've already seen a lot of, I would say, effery involved with the JFK records, right? The FBI just found 2,400 records that were not included in the...
What is going on? 2,400? Yo.
the Assassination Review Board. They just weren't even included already. So it shows that maybe elements of the federal government, such as the FBI, are actually looking into this, actually looking into it. And then despite all the years, right, the JFK Assassination Records Collection Act was signed in 1992.
What do we, like, why are we introducing this foolery at a time such as this if you don't have nothing there?
This afternoon, a bunch of conservative influencers left a meeting at the White House with binders that said the Epstein files. When we began to feel duped, Pam Bondi released a letter that says, basically, I was duped too.
Pam Bondi, come on. Let's talk about Pam Bondi. I'm giving my honest take. This may get me in trouble with the Trump administration. I don't know. I was going to make a video yesterday about this, but I said, let me hold off because I don't want no beef. I love Donald Trump. I want us to win. I want us to succeed. But y'all don't follow me for me to just say what everybody want me to say because I'm afraid I won't get invited in these rooms. I just believe that we need to line this up a lot better than what we've been doing. There is no flipping way that Pam Bondi don't seem to be on the same page is Kesh Patel that don't seem to be on the same page as Trump, that don't seem to be on the same page as what are y'all doing? That's all I'm saying. I'm just, look, I care about Trump. Y'all making Trump look bad. What are y'all doing? If you don't know why the FBI isn't releasing the Epstein files, don't release the files. Hold off on it. This ain't a
Hold off on it.
make or break issue. I don't know a single mom thinking about Epstein files right now, or somebody struggling, working on their job all day long just to get home, trying to provide for their family, buying groceries, and they worry about Epstein. He dead, or he ain't going to jail. What do we like? Why are we introducing this foolery at a time such as this if you don't have nothing there? Pam Bondi, come on! You had the same documents that they holding up. This is so embarrassing. This is the most embarrassing. And I love everybody on here. Now, I don't know Liz Wheeler that much. But Rogan, Chad, the gay dude back there, I forget his name. What's his name? Pressler. I don't know who the other people are. But, like, a lot of these people I love. I like them. I don't want to. Y'all did this to them. Some of them are acting in good faith. Pam Bondi, you knew when you had the documents on the desk, you knew that whenever these binders were created for certain people, you knew what was in it. How about you say, y'all, we're going to hold off on these binders. The FBI is not releasing the stuff that we want them to release. Kesh, hey, how you want to handle this? Do you want to do a press conference? Are you going to get on top of this? Because I'll ease off of it until you get it. And when you get it, call me. And then we're going to roll this out together. Not that you roll this out. You got influencers looking crazy as three left shoes on an eight-legged man. They boasting with the binders and ain't nothing in it. Ain't nothing in it.
Wow. So they released nothing.
So are you saying too, let me stop you here, that Epstein made a lot of his money through blackmailing wealthy people?
He did, but he was protected because Jeffrey Epstein by himself couldn't blackmail someone like Les Wexner, who has connections to the Genovese crime family. Who's ever the blackmail mark has to know if you touch Jeffrey Epstein, there's going to be retribution. The only way that Jeffrey Epstein could blackmail some of the most powerful people, not only in the country, but in the world.
You know, I didn't think that far into this, that he could have been, a CIA operative, if you want to call him that, being used by the CIA to blackmail politicians and powerful people.
Wow, that'd be a crazy spin if that's true.
Who really killed JFK? November 22, 1963, Dallas, Texas. They tell us Lee Harvey Oswald, a lone gunman, fired 3 shots from the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository and took out the President of the United States. But does that really add up? Witnesses heard shots from the grassy knoll. The Zapruder felon? The headshot came from the front, not behind. And Oswald killed just days later by Jack Ruby, a nightclub owner with mob TIs? Too convenient. Then there's the CIA furious at Kennedy for wanting to dismantle them after the Bay of Pigs disaster. He was a threat to their power. And when powerful people feel threatened, well, history shows what happens. So, was it really just one man with a rifle or something much bigger? Something we were never meant to uncover?
The Epstein files are trending, but what's really in it? Jeffrey Epstein, a billionaire with ties to presidents and top politicians. But behind the scene, he hid a dark secret. For years, Epstein molested young girls, making big promises but dragging them into a real-life nightmare. In 2008, he was caught but struck a deal, serving just 13 months in jail. The victims were silenced, and he walked free.
Wow.
In 2019, Epstein was arrested on federal charges, but before he could talk, he was found dead. But how did he die inside the cell with marks around his neck? Now, the Department of Justice has released new evidence, a CD, $17,000 in cash, and items like restraints and massage tables. Most files were already public, so why release them now? Attorney General Pam Bondi claims the authorities withheld thousands of pages. What's on those hidden drives? Who's still protecting his legacy? Do you believe the full truth will ever come out? What do you think?
Do you think it's possible that Epstein was killed?
Oh, sure, it's possible. I mean, I don't really believe. I think he probably committed suicide. He had a life with, beautiful homes and beautiful everything, and he all of a sudden he's incarcerated and not doing very well. I would say that he did, but there are those people. There are many people. I think you're one of them, right? But a lot of people think that he was killed. He knew a lot on a lot of people.
He was killed.
You think so?
I think the closer you look, I'm not a conspiracy person at all. I believe everything I hear. But yeah, the closer you look into it, I mean, the Attorney General of the United States, your Attorney General, clearly lied about the Epstein death.
Yeah,
and
he was.
Why?
He was certainly. It wasn't well done. They had no cameras. They had no anything. Everybody was sleeping, and a case could be made. Look, I'm not going to get involved in it, but I can tell you, a case could be made either way.
A case can be made.
Okay, here's a question. Did JFK's driver cause JFK's death? There were like 3 shots going on, and there's this motorcade, right? And this guy, William Greer, who was like an ex-military guy, but he was from Ireland, and he's this military guy, and he's been driving for wealthy families forever, but he is sitting in the front seat. Next to him is his supervisor in the Secret Service, this guy, Roy Kellerman. The first shots go out, and the second one, and he, according to witnesses and the Zapruder film, he slows down and almost stops. And then he turns, even though Roy is like, move! And he's turning to look at Connolly. And a lot of critics say, listen, if he had moved faster and gotten the heck out of there on the first shot, JFK would have still been alive. That's the word on the street. And then his son, years later after he died, when it was like 1991, and somebody asked his son, hey, did your dad like Kennedy? He goes, well, we were Methodists and he was Catholic.
My father was walking at the bottom of the hill with John McComb when I got home, who was the CIA director, who was one of the first people to get to the house. My father said to him, did your people do this? So his initial instinct was that the CIA had killed his brother. So I had this extraordinary magical childhood that was, where my house at Hickory Hill in Virginia was 10 minutes from the White House. My father was the most powerful person in government after my uncle. He had run my uncle's campaign. He was now his attorney general, but he had a portfolio across all the agencies. And he was a young man, 35 years old, and he was running the government. And he was deeply involved. The CIA was only minutes from my house. And it was a mile, or less than a mile. I went horseback riding every morning with my dad. We had at that time, there were 9 kids, and each one of us had a horse, and my father would take us galloping across the countryside, through the woods, etc., every morning before breakfast, and we'd always ride through the CIA campus. That's when the building was first being built, and the CIA had, my father and uncle fired Dulles, but they replaced him with a guy called John McComb, who came to our house every day. We had Cuban brigade members from the Cuban Brigade, 257 Brigade, who were at our house all the time. We had Green Berets climbing on the roof. The house was filled with all of the congressmen and senators. Every meal, there were Supreme Court justices, there were, members of the administration. A lot of the big programs, the civil rights program, were all directed from my house by my father. I would sit behind a couch in the living room when he ordered 20,000 troops down to the University of Alabama to integrate it and to Mississippi. So I grew up in this extraordinary milieu. I'm very, very lucky to have kind of front row seats at all of these events. And then my uncle was killed in 1963.
Where were you when he was killed?
I was at school, Sidwell Friends School. I got picked up by my mom early, and she was driving us home, and I saw somebody. I saw them. I was 10 years old. I was in 5th grade. I went into 1st grade at 5 years old. I saw men hauling the flags down to half-staff. And I asked her why they were doing that, and she hadn't spoken to me. And she said a bad man shot Uncle Jack. And then I got home. My father, we lived on a 7-acre farm right outside of Washington, and called Hickory Hill, and it was an antebellum mansion, that had been Civil War. It had been John McClellan's house, General McClellan during the U.S. Civil War.
Wow.
And it was a big house with like 25 rooms in it. We had, like I said, 11 kids, and there was always guests in that house. And my father was walking at the bottom of the hill with John McComb when I got home, who was the CIA director, who was one of the first people to get to the house. My father, during that walk, and I ran down to give him a hug, and McComb laughed, but during that walk, my father said to him, "Did your people do this?" So his initial instinct was that the CIA had killed his brother. He made 2 other calls that day. One to the CIA desk officer in Langley, which again was less than a mile from my house, and he asked him the same question. And then he made the same call to Harry Ruiz, who is one of the leaders of the Cuban Brigade, and who was then staying in a hotel in Washington. And he asked him, did your people do this? He suspected it was the Cuban group that had done it. And and then my father then, really shut down for almost a year. He was so shattered by his brother's death. And he started slowly coming out of his shell, and, he ran for Senate a year later in 1964 and won. And then he became this incredible political force.
This is the moment the world's most infamous financier was found lifeless in his prison cell, under circumstances so baffling they continue to ignite debate to this day. Jeffrey Epstein, the billionaire with powerful friends, was discovered unresponsive in his high-security cell at the Metropolitan Correctional Center on August 10, 2019. Official reports ruled it self-inflicted, but key facts just don't add up. Epstein was awaiting trial for orchestrating a vast criminal enterprise involving minors. He was being held in one of the most secure detention centers in the US, designed to house high-risk criminals. Yet, on the night of his passing, 2 security cameras malfunctioned. The 2 guards responsible for checking on him every 30 minutes mysteriously fell asleep.
Whoa.
His cellmate, moved out the day before, attorney Spencer Kuvin, who has fought for Epstein's victims for over 2 decades, remains skeptical. He personally met Epstein and described him as arrogant, calculating, and convinced he'd never face real consequences. Why would a man so sure of his own power give up before even standing trial? Kuvin asks. Then there's the issue of his cell itself. In correctional facilities, especially when someone is considered a risk to themselves, rooms are designed to be sterile. Every corner is searched for anything that could be used for self-harm. Bed sheets in particular are considered highly dangerous. Yet Epstein's cell contained multiple, far more than would typically be allowed. How did that happen? Even Epstein's former associate, Ghislaine Maxwell, now serving a 20-year sentence, has stated she believes he was eliminated to keep secrets buried.
Damn.
And those secrets, they involve some of the world's most powerful figures, politicians, business moguls, and even royalty. With the long-awaited Epstein files set for release, containing names, travel logs, and potentially explosive evidence, one question remains. Will the truth finally come out, or will this case remain one of the most chilling mysteries of our time? One thing, however, remains certain. Whatever happened that night, Epstein's victims were denied justice. They never got to see him stand trial, face cross-examination, or answer for the horrific crimes they say he committed. Instead, they were left with more questions, more secrecy, and the sinking feeling that powerful people still hold all the answers.
That's crazy.
This is a Fox News alert. The Epstein files have been released. Fox News senior national correspondent Kevin Corke has been pouring through all the documents. Kevin, what can you tell us?
Evening, Laura. I don't want to oversell this because I don't think there's a whole lot to sell, at least so far. We'll probably learn a lot more tomorrow morning by that 8 a.m. deadline that the AG has given the FBI in New York to turn over everything in their possession. But let me back up for just a second. The Attorney General, you recall last night, called it breaking news. She promised that we would get the Epstein files today, and while that turned out technically to be true, what we've seen so far, critics have argued tonight, really hasn't lived up to the dramatic billing. Now, we began the day with somewhat high expectation, having seen some influencers with so-called Epstein file folders. But that began to fizzle just a bit because we really didn't get a lot of new information. So once we saw that, we wondered, what about the Attorney General's? Was she holding back? Well, she actually wrote a letter, Laura, to the FBI director, Kash Patel, suggesting that the FBI's New York office, which collected material from the SDNY, that's the Southern District of New York, it seemed to be, for lack of a better description, stonewalling, holding back key materials. Now, the FBI director, obviously concerned about this, went on X, and Director Patel wrote a fairly lengthy post. In it, he said there'll be no cover-ups and no missing documents and no stone left unturned. And anyone from the prior or current Bureau who undermines this will be swiftly pursued. He went on to say if there are gaps, we will find them. If records have been hidden, we will uncover them, and we will bring everything we find to the DOJ to be fully assessed and transparently disseminated to the American people as it should be. So you may be wondering, okay, after all that, Kevin, what do we have? Well, so far we do have 7 flight logs. We have an Epstein contact book. We have a masseuse list, which strangely was redacted. Now, I should add this as well, Laura. Many of the names that we saw on the flight logs, at least so far, mirrored some of the names that we've seen before. There was obviously a criminal action that involved Ghislaine Maxwell. Some of the names on that flight log list, we've already seen those before. But what was interesting so far tonight, and I'm still going through it, we did see a few names in that contact book I told you about. Among them, Michael Bloomberg, Alec Baldwin, and former UK Prime Minister Tony Blair. Again, we're still going through it. As I get more information, I promise to pass it along, but that's what I have so far.
All right, Kevin. Always great to see you. Thank you very much.
You too, my friend.
So did anything come out or what?
My uncle, John Kennedy, he realized early on that the purpose of the CIA and the intelligence apparatus was to create a constant pipeline of new wars. Eisenhower, who was the outgoing president, gave what is probably the most important speech in American history, which was, where he warned against the military-industrial complex. I was at my uncle's inauguration. I was in Washington that day, a 6-year-old boy. And 2 months later, the military and intelligence came to him and said, we got to invade Cuba. And he was like, I'm not going to Cuba, and I'm not going to let the military. And they said, well, we got all these Cubans trained, and they're going to go attack Castro. And he said, well, the U.S. government can't be doing that. I don't like what Castro's doing down there, but it's not the United States' job to dictate what kind of governments other countries have. And they said, well, as soon as they land, there's going to be a big revolution. Everybody's going to rise up and they're going to overthrow Castro. And he said, well, you can't use the U.S. military. And they ended up bringing those guys over. And in the middle of it, in the night, they came to him and said, they're getting wiped out on the beach and you need to send in the military and invade. And he said, we're not going to do it. He stepped out of that meeting and he realized they had been lying to him and trying to trick him. And he said, I want to take the CIA and shatter it into 1,000 pieces and scatter it to the winds. For the next 1,000 days of his presidency, he was at war with his military and intelligence apparatus. They tried to get him to go into Laos. He said no. They tried to get him to go into Vietnam. They said that we need 250,000 combat troops. He refused. Everybody around him wanted him to go into Vietnam. He sent 16,000 military advisors. They weren't allowed to fight. Many of them did. They both violated the rules of engagement. In October of 1963, he heard some of his Green Berets had been killed over there. And he said, I want a total casualty list from Vietnam. And his aide came to him and said, 75 Americans have died. He said, that's too many. And he signed that day a national security order ordering all troops out of Vietnam, U.S. troops. And then a month later, he was killed.
Jeffrey Epstein did not kill himself. He was strangled. You don't want to live in a country where it's possible to murder people in federal lockup, cover up the killings, and then get away with them. That's scary. That should not be allowed in this or any other civilized place. But in the case of Jeffrey Epstein, it appears that it was allowed. And on one level, you can see why it was. This is one of those crimes that has no natural constituency pushing to solve it. The only people who liked Jeffrey Epstein were his friends, and some of them are clearly happy he's dead. Here's Bill Gates, whom records show spent quite a bit of time with Jeffrey Epstein after he became a registered sex offender.
What did you do when you found out about his background?
Well, I've said I regretted having those dinners, and there's absolutely nothing new on that.
Is there a lesson for you, for anyone else looking at this?
Well, he's dead, so, in general, you always have to be careful.
Well, he's dead, along with his many secrets about me and the rest of our friends. Boo, we're so sorry. So sorry.
This stuff is...
When Trump issued his executive order about the release of the files, and also for RFK and MLK, then the Bureau says, well, we were able to, because we'd done this digitizing and this way of tracking our records, we were able to find 2,400 documents that are related that we just didn't know about.
Crazy.
So there's those, and then there's maybe 5,000 other documents left that haven't been released.
Well, Trump was quoted as saying that if you saw what they showed me, you wouldn't release it either.
Right.
What does that mean?
What
can that mean?
It's a really good question. Here's what I think. I think, and I don't. Obviously, I don't know what's in those documents either.
Wait a minute, you don't?
Well, remember, I was a toddler when he was shot, and
Right.
Although that would have been the perfect cover, right? Because nobody's fucking looking for a toddler to come behind
with
that
a microphone, magnifying glass,
come off that grassy knoll.
The things that the intel community could do to restore trust is declassify things that have no legitimate reason to be secret, like any files pertaining to the Kennedy assassination from 62 years ago. And yet they are ferocious, the CIA in particular, ferocious opponent. Fact, because I bumped up against it myself, ferocious opponents of declassifying that information. Why do you think that is?
There is a sort of a reflexive circling of wagons when it comes to secrecy in the IC. I think in the case of the Kennedy assassination, and probably things certainly dating back maybe even less than that, there's an overwhelming public benefit to sharing that data.
In that specific case, it was so long ago, so many books have been written about it. It's a cliche. It's almost a parody at this point. The Kennedy assassination. It's like, if you can't give an inch on that. And by the way, as of 2 weeks ago, I happen to know, they were still fighting it like ferociously. No, you cannot appoint that person. That person might disclose those files. What is that?
So what I'll say next, I'll say as a person who spent most of my adult life, in the intel community, I would be very curious as to how somebody would try to justify that. I mean, the only thing that I could think of is that, government files would include theories of crime or an event that later get to be disproven. So in the early days of, some kind of an event, you're going to have agencies and parts of your agency generate things. But I think American democracy can handle that. And
it demands it. Who's the president of the United States?
The president has absolute declassification authorities.
Where?
So people can dislike it, but if the president says, you will declassify everything related to subject X, his declassification authority is as broad and absolute as his pardon power.
Why would Pompeo fight so hard to keep those files secret?
I really don't know. If the president had said that they wanted something declassified, I don't understand why they would say that, they would push back on it.
Do you think CIA had a role in the president's murder in 1963?
I personally don't. If I had to guess, could I see a situation where dots didn't get connected that should have been connected? Things dropped off the table. Somebody looked at a piece of information and said, well, that's not really all that important. That said, I have friends of mine who are retired, CIA officers who at least entertain the idea that the agency of 1962, 1963, it's possible.
No, really, they're still there sitting in a manila folder, like telling us who the assassin was working for or whatever, telling us the truth. I have a lot of trouble believing they'd still be there if they were ever there. The only reason that I'm focused on it is because I know for a fact that there are CIA employees. I know this for a fact, dead certain fact. I just was hearing about it, are trying to prevent certain people from getting jobs on the basis of their belief that those people will push for declassification.
You said the evidence is overwhelming and beyond any reasonable doubt that the CIA was involved in the killing of your uncle, a U.S. president. What is the evidence?
Well, there's millions of pages of documents, of CIA documents, of transcripts, of recorded conversations from the Cuban embassy in Mexico City. It's hard to summarize the evidence. There are, as I said in that podcast, there are confessions of people who were directly involved in the plot, who were involved in the planning of the plot, who were peripheral to the plot. There's a 60-year cover-up.
Crazy.
Looks like the FBI is freaking out. In light of the task force and upcoming releases of all this disclosure material and information that's been kept from the American public, pretty much the entire public this entire time, the FBI is trying to destroy evidence, trying to destroy all the files within their servers, their secret servers actually, according to this guy that talks about it. All that release is going to come crashing down on these individuals who are hiding this information. So it's quite obvious why they want to destroy it, because it's going to point directly to them. All I'm saying is they really better follow up on this immediately, as Anna Paulina Luna says they're going to, because this is going to be a big problem going forward.
This stuff is crazy.
A former F-16 pilot here. So 10 days before JFK's 1963 assassination, a murky memo hints that he demanded UFO files from the CIA. Over the years, conspiracies like the Twitter files turned real. So was this one? Let's unpack the evidence.
Whoa.
November 12, 1963, JFK allegedly asked CIA Director McCone for all UFO intelligence by February 64. It leaked by FOIA request supposedly in 2011, but here's the hitch, is there's no copy in the JFK library and the format's off. So experts call it shaky. There's a 30% chance it's real, they say tops. So if it's legit, He worried UFOs might spark a war with the Soviets. 10 days later, he's dead. Coincidence or cover-up? This guy, James Files, he's an Alabama ex-con. He claims he fired the fatal shot from the grassy knoll with the Remington fireball. CIA and mafia gig Charles Nicoletti, a mob hitman, shot from the Dow Tex building, he says. Representative Anna Paulina Luna, an Air Force vet like me, saw classified docs. She says she believes there are 2 shooters, and she's digging into 2,400 new files that they just found. 14,000 pages found February 11th, 2025. Stats say there's 1% outliers. 140 pages could rewrite the lone gunman story. Those files might point to Mexico City. Oswald's September 63 embassy visits, tracked by the CIA. Did he cross paths with Nicoletti or Files? Then we have Uri Geller. Uri Geller claims he remote viewed it for the CIA in the 70s in Mexico City and saw accomplices. Remote viewing's spotty, they say 20% hit rate, but if the files align, it's a thread worth pulling. This is the grassy knoll here. So why kill JFK? The military-industrial complex, raking in $50 billion in '63, hated his peace push. They hated the Vietnam drawdown, the Soviet talks. If that UFO memo holds, exposing alien tech threatened their black projects. We've seen enough to know that the government definitely hides secrets. These new files could prove it. What's your take? Subscribe and I'll keep digging. Peace.
To learn that the CIA has been lying about President Kennedy's assassination. I know it's shocking, right?
It only took however many years to be able to say that, Clayton.
Out loud. I know, it's crazy. All in an effort, of course, to block the American people from knowing what happened on that day. Well, this week, suddenly, out of the blue, the FBI has just discovered 2,400 new JFK documents, 14,000 pages. Timing is amazing. Comes just a few weeks after President Trump asked for a full release of all JFK documents related to the murder. Well, the man we wanted to ask to come on, who knows arguably more about this than anyone in the United States, has written a book about this. The man who killed Kennedy, the case against LBJ, and that is Roger Stone. Roger Stone, welcome into the show. Great to see you again, my friend.
Good to be back with you.
So what do you make, first of all, before we get to what you expect to see in these documents, the full release here once President Trump signs off on that, and Tulsi Gabbard being in there, et cetera. But this new revelation, 2,400 new JFK documents, 14,000 pages. The timing strikes me as odd, first of all. Does it strike you that way?
Well, it's far worse than that, because really it's just the tip of the iceberg. You see, all of the relevant documents pertaining to John F. Kennedy's murder did not go into the JFK assassination documents archive. It's available in a number of other places and other agencies. Those documents are not included. So the president could broaden his order to say all documents in possession of any federal agency. And then if we're serious, and the president is quite serious, about examining the documents pertaining to the death of Senator Robert Kennedy, who was murdered while running for president on the evening he won the California primary, or Dr. Martin Luther King, well, we need to have the Los Angeles Police Department's records and the Memphis, Tennessee records, as well as the records from the Dallas Police Department and the Dallas Sheriff's Office. The president's committed to full disclosure, but the bureaucrats are always going to play these games, hiding documents here and there. Congressman Steve Cohen, a Democrat from Tennessee, and Congressman Tim Burchett, who is a real fighter on this issue, have both co-written a letter to the president explaining where various places the documents could be hidden, and urging him to set up someone as a liaison to ensure that every single document is ultimately declassified and made available to the American people. But the president's order called for a plan. We're supposed to have a plan by now. He gave them 15 days. We've still seen no public plan. Once we see that We'll see if it's adequate to uncover all that which is covered.
Well, obviously our show is called Redacted because usually the things that are redacted are the things that we want to know about. So what do you think will be redacted? How much of it do you think that those juicy details that the public wants and is in the public interest to know at this point will be hidden from us under redactions?
Well, look, I think if you go back and look at the history of this, it tells you a lot. The law mandating the release of all of the JFK assassination documents was passed in the late 90s. The date turned out to be 2017. So this decision came to President Donald Trump whether he should declassify the documents. In the end, he decided to declassify about 80% of them. We learned all kinds of things that we didn't know about Kennedy's assassination. For example, there's a memo from J. Edgar Hoover to President Lyndon Johnson saying, "Sir, our sources tell you the KGB, their Russian intelligence agency, has conducted their own independent investigation, and they concluded that you, sir, are the perp and working with several federal agencies." That was one of the things that was released. But the part that was held back at the behest of the Mike Pompeo, who was the CIA director. So it would be, and his reasoning was that it would expose the methods and sources of the agency. Now, President Trump told me that it was Pompeo who talked him out of full disclosure. He also told Judge Andrew Napolitano, and then about, 10 days ago, he told Sean Hannity. So that kind of tells you what piece is missing. If you understand the Kennedy assassination is a puzzle, while I maintain in my New York Times bestselling book that Lyndon Johnson is the drum major, he's calling the shots. He appoints himself to the secret black box subcommittee of the Defense Appropriations Committee. At the time, he's the Senate Majority Leader. Very rare for a majority leader to serve on any committee, but that's where the CIA's budget is controlled. In other words, Lyndon Johnson is the paymaster for the CIA. And very recently, I think it was Alex Jones, posted an audio that came from the great-grandson of Billy Sal Estes, one of Johnson's cronies, and the executive director of the Democrat National Committee, basically Johnson's chief political operative, in which they talk casually about the fact that Lyndon Johnson hired Malcolm Mac Wallace to kill John F. Kennedy.
Is launching an investigation after the FBI field office in New York allegedly withheld thousands of Epstein documents. Check this out. So this letter was just sent to FBI Director Kash Patel on behalf of the Department of Justice, the Office of the Attorney General. And you can see this is dated today, February 27th, 2025. It says, "Dear Director Patel, before you came into office, I requested the full and complete files related to Jeffrey Epstein. In response to this request, I received approximately 200 pages, let me just zoom in a little bit here, of documents which consisted primarily of flight logs, Epstein's list of contacts, and a list of victims' names and phone numbers. I repeatedly questioned whether this was the full set of documents responsive to my request, and was repeatedly assured by the FBI that we had received the full set of documents. Late yesterday, I learned from a source." So when she says late yesterday, I'm assuming that means after that viral video that I posted yesterday where she went on the air, live national television, and said everything. She even said, "This is breaking news." Like she broke it on air saying that she was going to release everything today. So I'm assuming, now this is a presumption on my part, but if this letter was dated today, I'm assuming the video that was posted, I posted yesterday, that she admitted on air was she was not privy to this information in that video yesterday. Ugh, it gets complicated. So I learned from a source that the FBI field office in New York was in possession of thousands of pages of documents related to the investigation and indictment of Epstein. Despite my repeated requests, the FBI never disclosed the existence of these files. When you and I spoke yesterday, you were just as surprised as I was to learn this new information. This, my fellow Americans, my fellow global citizens, Nez Nation, this is nothing short of high treason. in the most elevated, alarming form I've ever seen. These are acts of sedition. You have a rogue FBI, and it begs a lot of questions. But let me just finish the letter. I have a lot to say about this. By 8 a.m. tomorrow, February 28th, the FBI will deliver the full and complete Epstein files to my office, including all records, documents, audio and video recordings, and materials related to Jeffrey Epstein and his clients, regardless of how such information was obtained. There will be no withholdings or limitations to my or your access. The Department of Justice will ensure that any public disclosure of these files will be done in a manner to protect the privacy of victims and in accordance with law, as I have done in my entire career as a prosecutor. I am also directing you to conduct an immediate investigation. Order to the FBI was not followed. Yeah, thank you very much, Cash. She continues, you will deliver to me a comprehensive report of your findings and proposed personnel action within 14 days. People need to go to jail for this, y'all. I appreciate your immediate attention, yada, yada, yada. I know we're both committed to transparency for the American people, and I look forward to continuing to work with you to serve our president. Signed, sincerely, Pam Bondi, Attorney General. So, a lot of questions. Number one, what is the incentive for this FBI office in New York, of course, a blue run city, to deny this request, to withhold these documents? That's a biggie right there. They're going to lose their jobs. They're going to face serious jail time, if not lifetime imprisonment. This is literally an act of sedition. This is high treason. And then number two, maybe the biggest question of all, who directed them to withhold these documents? What is their incentive? What is their motivation? How could they think? You know, human beings, self-preservation is the number one instinct of every human being. I don't care if you're Mother Teresa. I don't care if you're, you know, the most giving, altruistic human being that ever lived. Self-preservation is an instinct that is prevalent amongst all human beings. A lot of these FBI agents, a lot of these offices, the people who are supervisors, high officials, this is their only livelihood. They have pensions, they have retirement, they have families, they have a wife, they have a husband, they have children, they have mortgages. They're risking it all. They're literally risking it all. Why? For who? What purpose? What is going on here? What were they guaranteed? What were they promised in return? This is unbelievable. And my only hope is that we not only terminate, personnel recommendations. I got a personnel recommendation for you, Attorney General Pam Bondi. How about a tribunal for not only these rogue FBI agents at this rogue office, but you need to get confessions out of each and every one of them. Who are they working for? Who is governing them? Who ordered them to withhold these documents? That would be my personnel recommendation. And Cash, if I know Cash Patel, like I think we all have a pretty good idea of where he stands as far as law enforcement, as far as abiding by the will of the American people, as far as making common sense go viral, as far as being loyal to Trump's agenda, which is, again, loyal to the agenda of the people, by the people, of the people, for the people. I'm going to have to say that Cash is going to agree with me. This is jail time. This is serious acts of sedition, treason of the highest order. And so this is where we're at right now. And we don't have anything else that has really come out about this. Again, this is the Southern District, New York FBI office. And there were even reports that the FBI was secretly destroying these documents. And so the big, everybody right now, if you're like me, you just got a big WTF above your head. Like, what in the is going on here? We need to get to the bottom of this.
A lot of people are wondering, because you said last week that you have the Epstein files on your desk, is when can we see them and what's taking so long to release them?
I do. Jesse, there are well over, this will make you sick, 200 victims. 200. So we have over 250 actually. So we have to make sure that their identity is protected and their personal information. But other than that, I think tomorrow, the personal information of victims. Other than that, I think tomorrow, Jesse, breaking news right now, you're going to see some Epstein information being released by my office.
What kind? Are we going to see who was on the flights? Are we going to see any evidence from what he recorded? Because he had all of his homes wired with recording devices.
What you're going to see, hopefully tomorrow, is a lot of flight logs, a lot of names, a lot of information. But it's pretty sick what that man did.
Okay.
This stuff is crazy.
What they showed me, this was your quote, you wouldn't want people to know it either.
So I opened them up partially. I was met with, from good people. I mean, good people. People that were well-meaning. Mike Pompeo was one of them. He's a good person. They called me. They said, "Sir, would rather have you not." And I did open them. But I was asked by some people not to open them. There's a Martin Luther King file, too, by the way, that they'd like to see. I don't know if you know, but there is that. But JFK in particular. So they called me, a lot of good people called me, people that that you would find reasonable people. And they asked me not to do it. So I said, well, we'll close it for another time. But if I win, I'm going to open them up. I'm just going to open enough time.
Why didn't you open it up the first time?
Because
though?
a lot of times,
what was the hesitation, though?
Addresses, people that are still living. There are people that are affected. And there could be some national security reason that that I don't have to necessarily know about. But some very good, talented people asked me not to do it. I opened it up, and then they said, would it be possible for us to do that a different day?
How much of it did you read into?
I think it's going to be just fine to open it. Let me put it that way. I think it's fine. It's going to be time. It's a cleansing. It's really a cleansing. So I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it immediately, almost immediately upon entering office.
Well, the thing, when people look at it from the outside and you sort of imagine what could be a reason why they would not release those files, it would be there's people that were implicated in the assassination.
Yeah. Well, when there are living people, you generally tend not to want to do it. When people are still living.
Living people that formerly work for the government.
For the government, and living people that were somehow involved in it, and you tend not to do that. But it's time to open them. I can't tell you whether or not they're going to find anything of interest. And I did partially open. I think I've opened 50%, but I was asked not to do it, and I thought that was a reasonable ask. But now I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it very soon. There's a lot of interest in it.
One of the things that
He said, now I'm doing it. Before.
Known Epstein clients, who are obviously extremely powerful, they're powerful politically and very wealthy, are Bill Gates, Bill Clinton, and Reid Hoffman. And some others too, but those three. So, why was Reid Hoffman so intent on destroying Trump?
You think it's because they're worried about the list coming out?
Yeah.
It's so frustrating to be sitting in a situation where the list isn't coming out.
Well, it better come out, hopefully tomorrow.
Why'd they release bullshit today?
I don't know.
What's the point in giving these people like a happy folder to wave around in front of the camera with nothing in it that's new? Doesn't make any sense.
Joe don't give a fuck. All right, so that was another TikTok reaction, man, talking about a whole bunch of files being released from JFK, RFK, Epstein. A whole bunch of stuff is going on right now, and it's spicy out there in these streets, man. It's going down. It's crazy in 2025 with what's going on, man. If you made it this far, you a real one for real. Make sure you put that in the comments. Make sure you hit that like button. I got a TikTok playlist you can go through and binge watch. FBI hiding documents, thousands of pages. I mean, a lot of people not surprised, but it's surprising still when you get the actual number of what actually was going on. But till next time, man, self-love and positivity, Fire Squad, I got you and you know it.